Alright, so this is the pump that was put in about a week and a half ago with the vibrating and the kind of rubbing noise. This pump vibrated quite a bit, so we pulled it off and replaced it, and now we're going to do some little test runs on it. So this is the serial number info for this pump, and I have it set up with some indicators and plumbed in and primed. We're going to turn it on and just start running it at some different speeds. Okay, I just put the dial indicator on there to show the vibrating. This is always going to have some vibration, it's not bolted down. So we'll start the pump. Okay, so the valves are set up to simulate one of our turbo pools at the higher speeds. So right now it's running at 450 RPM. You can actually see the pump shaking. There's also a noise this pump makes after it gets going a little bit. Right there it's running at 950, and it actually starts to smooth out as it gets up into this range. That's 1450 right there. At that point the pump almost totally quits vibrating. Running at 1350 now, it's still running very smooth. There's 2250. Still very smooth, sounds normal. 2550, we're starting to creep above 5 inches of vacuum. So it's going to start to bounce a little bit. There's 3000. We're at about 7 inches of vacuum and 15 psi right now. Vacuum's starting to get a little to the high side, and the pump's starting to bounce a little bit, but you'd expect that. And there's full speed, 3450. The vacuum's creeping up to about 9 inches on the 2-inch pipe, and we're at about 20 psi. That bouncing you're seeing there is actually just the pulsing from the high vacuum. I'm going to turn it back down to the lower speeds now. Now we're down to 450. There's a pretty distinct rubbing sound inside of the pump that you can hear. And the pulsing. I'm going to turn off the camera, let it run for a little bit here, and see if it gets any louder. The pump's been running for a little while now. It's at 450. You can kind of hear the almost like a rubbing noise. It's actually quieted down quite a bit over what it was doing. I'm going to go ahead and take the pump apart and see if I can find anything going on in there. Alright, so I've taken the impeller screw out and the screws off the diffuser. We're going to go ahead and take the diffuser off. Take a look at that. Go over here in the shade. And there's some obvious scratches in the diffuser where the impeller was more than likely rubbing on it. That may have been all that accounts for the noise it was making. Let's take a look at the impeller. Alright, so if we kind of zoom in on the impeller, there's some fairly significant scratches on one side of that where it was rubbing against the diffuser. So that's certainly going to account for the noise. If we take the impeller off, alright, so with the impeller back on, you can kind of see that little flat tab down there. And when I measure that, that's actually the piece on the seal plate is about a 1/4 inch closer to center of the motor than the scratch on the impeller. So I don't think that's probably what did that, unless that piece was sticking out at a weird angle toward the outside. So I'm not really sure what did that scratch. But at this point, I'm just going to close it all up, send it back to David, and let him take a look at it as well.